7 months ago, your girl got dumped. He was my first love, my first body, my first everything. So you already know that breakup was bad. Like, it really sent me mental. So it's safe to say that I haven't been the happiest trooper the past 7 months. But, you know, now, January 2026, I can say that I'm happy. I'm happy. I want to say I'm healed. I'm not fully healed, but, you know, I'm getting there. And even though it was such a miserable experience for me, I don't regret it at all. In fact, I've learned a lot. I think I've become a whole different person in a good way, and I very much appreciated this experience. So I think I have some credentials to talk about this and what I've learned in the past 7 months, in hopes to maybe give hope to someone who's in this position, to see that, hey, like, it really does get better, and provide some advice that has helped me move on. I think one of the very first things I learned was it's okay to be sad. It's okay to have a few days where you have to just process your emotions. You know, like, I can't describe this grief that I went through. It genuinely just felt like dying. I felt like a dying corpse. I couldn't eat. I lost 10 pounds in a week. I didn't see the sun for like a few days. I was legit a vampire. When I came out of my room, my parents thought I was a ghost, because it was just like, what the fuck happened to her? But I think it's very much necessary to process your emotions. You know, I'm the type of person where if something bad happens, I try and force myself to go out and distract myself. I packed my schedule. But as much as that creates a distraction, I also avoid my emotions, which is absolutely terrible. It comes crashing down on me and I start burning out, and it's the worst thing ever. Which is why it's very much necessary for you to take a few days off and realize that it's okay to be sad. You need to be sad these few days and process. It's okay to be sad. But it honestly does hit a point where you have to realize that you can be sad, but go out and be sad. Go to the gym and be sad. Go to work and be sad. Distract yourself and be sad. Because when I started locking myself in my room, I felt myself not being able to go out at all. And I created this depressing hole for myself. And yeah, I remember my mom came into my room one day and she sat me down and she's just like, I get it. Like, it's okay to be sad, but your life doesn't stop here, you know? You can keep on living your life and doing the things you love while being sad. At some point, you have to pick yourself back up. You really do. And I hated hearing the phrase of time will heal. Boy, I don't care. Like, I don't want to hear that in a few months I'll be better. I want to be better now, because it's actually the most draining thing ever. And I honestly hate to be this person, because I hated hearing this, but it really does take time. I think over time you start to accept the situation. You start to take off those rose-tinted glasses, and you start to be stronger. You learn to be independent. But the thing with that is, I don't completely agree with that statement. Because yes, although time plays a role in you healing, you also play a role in you healing. I was in a state where I refused to heal for the longest time ever, because everyone would tell me, like, Angela, when you're healed, you won't miss him anymore, you won't love him anymore. You'll be okay. He won't be in your life anymore. But the thing is, I didn't want that. I didn't want to be healed if this is what being healed is like. I don't want to not miss him. I don't want to not love him. He's what I want. This idea of this new and better version of me didn't bring me comfort at all. What brought me comfort was him. What brought me comfort was us being back together. So for the longest time ever, I really did not want to heal, because it's just like, I don't ever want to get to the point where I don't love him. I don't want to ever get to the point where he's not in my life anymore. And that was a rough phase for me to move on from. But again, I think with time, I started to take off those rose-tinted glasses and realize that, oh, my relationship wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Like, oh, I deserve better. I deserve to move on. And I think the first step for me that actually allowed me to move on was cutting contact. So I guess this is the second thing I learned, was you cannot let go of something while holding on to it at the same time. You know, I think for a good 5 months, I really tried to convince myself that we could stay friends. I already lost my boyfriend. I lost my best friend. I don't want to lose you completely. You know what I mean? So I really try to convince him and we both try to convince each other that friends would work, but there was no way that I could move on that way. And there's no way you can move on if you're friends with your ex, you know? I think there's 3 scenarios in this friends trope. The first one is, you guys are not really friends. Let's be for real. This is like a situationship where, like, sometimes you guys text casually as friends, platonically. Sometimes it gets a bit flirty. Sometimes you hook up. Kidding. But it just creates this situationship where it's just like, okay, so we're not friends, but we're not dating. We're also friends, but we're also exes. Like, it creates a confusing situation. So let me know, how are you gonna move on from that? That was basically how mine ended up, and there was no way I could move on from that. And then the second situation is, they actually treat you as a friend, and that's gut-wrenching. Oh my god, it's actually one of the worst feelings ever, because how are you talking to me as if we never dated? How are you treating me as a friend when you told me you loved me a week ago, and I also saw your butthole a week ago? We are not friends. This is weird. I don't like this. I don't like this. And the third scenario is, they just completely ghost you. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, there's no way you can completely let go of someone and heal and be okay with yourself when you have constant reminders of them every single day. Whether if that's texting, or just seeing them on social media, or posting on social media for them. Because I feel like when you still have them on social media, your posts become performative, where you take this really cute selfie or this nice gym pic and just like, look at what they're missing out. They're gonna miss me now, like blah 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 blah. I'm gonna make them regret. And like, yeah, sure, like girl boss, I love that. But also, you're making everything about them again. You know, you take that picture with the intention of posting it to show them that you're better, that you're not better, that you're grieving. But again, you're reliant on their reaction. So how are you going to move on where everything in your life is dictated by their reaction on things? There's no way you can move on from that. And when I finally started to see when I started seeing progress in me healing and being okay, was when I chose to go no contact, when I chose to remove him off of all social media. Because, again, I hated watching his life in pixels. It made me want to die, because, you know, in a relationship, you know everything about this person. You know what they're up to, their schedule, small changes, big changes. But when you break up with someone, when you're going through a breakup, the updates slowly stop coming in. And instead of hearing these updates via messages from them or via call, you're seeing it from your friend's story, their story. You're finding out new pieces of information through pixels on your screen, and it's honestly one of the worst feelings ever, because they're moving on. They're moving on, but I'm still in this same state. And watching someone fall out of love and watching someone move on from you, it's honestly one of the worst feelings ever. So I had to make the decision that I can't pretend that I can be your friend. I can't pretend that we can still be in each other's life and still move on. I personally can't do it. I can't watch them fall in love with another girl. I can't watch these new cool adventures that I know nothing about. One big thing that stumped me in my breakup was I was subconsciously waiting for him. I was waiting for that text on my screen. I was waiting for him to call. I was waiting for him to come back. I was waiting for that possibility of me transferring to his school so we can be back together again. I was clinging on to this idea of us being back together. And that really stumped me, because I didn't want to heal in case that would happen. Like, what if we do get back together in 2 years? Then if I heal, then I'm preventing all of that, right? But here's the thing with that. I had to learn that you cannot cling onto an idea that's not guaranteed. You cannot cling onto the idea of us getting back together in the future. I cannot cling onto the idea of closure. I cannot cling onto the idea of him texting me and him calling me. Because the thing is, none of these things are guaranteed. We might go through the entirety of our life and he might not ever text me again. He might not ever call me again. I might never see him again, and he might never apologize to me again. And I was clinging on to the idea of closure and the idea of an apology, an explanation for the longest time ever. I needed to know why that happened. Why he would do that to me. Why he claims that he loves me, yet he does all of these heinous things to me. And it was exhausting. It was like constantly taking my energy, because every ding on my phone was, is that him? Every time I had to think was, why did he do that to me? What explanation is there that will make me feel better? I spent absolute months clinging on to the idea of something that I might not ever receive. Every day I was just wondering, I needed closure. I needed to know why we're here. Now, I'm the type of person where if something happened, I need to get to the bottom of it. I need to know step by step your thinking process and why you did the things you did. Because if you don't tell me, then I'm going to try and figure it out in my head. I will run the scenario in my head 1,000,000 times every single day and think of every single possible explanation to bring me some sort of comfort. And I thought it was bringing me comfort, but the truth is, when you constantly think about it, you constantly need closure, you are preventing yourself from moving on. Because they might not ever give you closure. They might not ever apologize to you. They might not ever reach out to you ever again. So when you enclose yourself in this cage waiting for something that might not ever come, you will never fully move on. I think I realized that I was self-sabotaging my own healing process because I was overthinking so much. I was dwelling on the situation so much. Was any of it real? Did he ever love me? Did this and that? But let's say I did get all of the answers from him. What does that change? Absolutely nothing. They already did those things to you. They already broke up with you. Nothing will change that. My bank account number stays the exact same. I still have to go to school. I still have to go to work. Nothing changes. So when I finally realized that, everything that was going on in here that was forcing me to replay memories over and over again, forcing me to stay in a moment of time, I was preventing myself from moving on. So I guess what I learned was you have to let go. Honestly, such a hard thing for me because I'm so bothered. I'm bothered to the max. Okay? But when I was holding on to my thoughts and the idea of needing an explanation, I couldn't move on. Because again, how do you expect yourself to move on and be okay with a situation when you think about it all of the time? And I think people need to realize that sometimes you self-sabotage your own healing. Because when you replay a memory over and over and over again, your mind cannot differentiate a memory and the feelings. Because when you think about the moment of the breakup, when you think about the moment where you got cheated on, the moment where you found something on their phone, you still feel the exact same way. You still hurt the same way. You still feel sad the same way. You're still as angry as you were months back. So when you replay a memory constantly in your head, it's like, what's the difference between you in that moment and you months back when that actually happened, years back when that happened? Nothing changes because you feel the exact same way. And you're just constantly forcing yourself to play a bad movie. You're forcing yourself to stay sad, and you need to stop listening to sad music. Stop looking at the photos. Stop replaying the memories. Because that is what kept me stuck for the longest time ever. And I had a feeling that maybe it's why you're stuck as well. Big thing that I had to learn, that I'm still trying to learn, is that whatever they do after the breakup has nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with how they operate and what's going on in here. Because when he was so quick to replace me after my breakup, it was a terrible feeling because it makes you question, was any of it real? How can you go and replace me so fast? How can you go and erase everything we had so fast and rewrite it with a different girl? Was anything real? Did you feel anything for me at all? And I was in this crazy cycle in my head of, was it real? Was it like, how can you do this? Blah, 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 blah. Everything I was saying earlier, right? But when I started to realize that it had nothing to do with my worth and who I was, but more so their inability of staying alone, that helped me feel better. And maybe this is cope, but hear me out, okay? Because no one really rushes healing. If they genuinely cared about healing, no one rushes that. We all know it's a sad and long process. It takes time. It takes hurting. It takes being alone. It takes accountability, realizing where I fell short, realizing what I need to do better. And the thing is, you cannot change your flaws in a week, in 2 weeks, in a few months. It takes time. It takes being alone. So when you're so quick to hop onto someone new. How do you expect to heal? How do you expect to be okay? You can't. You really can't. It's really just someone's inability to be alone, to heal. I think it's hard to think that way because I still struggle with that, because at the end of the day, whether they don't want to be alone or not, I've been replaced. A stone cold facts is he replaced me. And it's honestly one of the most confusing feelings ever. But I think it's important to remember that that's not a reflection of what I'm worth. Because I know what I'm worth. I know what I can bring to the table as a girlfriend. And him moving on so fast isn't an indicator that I'm any less. You know what I mean? And, sometimes people fear change. They fear having to fix their flaws for the person that they're with. So they find relief in breaking up. They find relief in the fact that they don't have to have this immense pressure on them to do better. Sometimes they move on to someone who's easier, who would tolerate things. And it's rough, because why couldn't you do better by me, right? Why couldn't you just swallow your pride a bit and be better? But I think the longer you delay your healing process, the longer you delay what's right to come into your life.